What's good, YouTube? It's me, your boy Squiddy, back again with another video. So today I want to show you guys a quick little idea that I had for branded Tearlaments. Well, it's not really my idea alone. I got to give a huge shout out to my boy Anthony ECKROTH, who kind of discovered a cool little trick that you could do with Tearlament names in the branded deck. This Tearlament engine actually allows you to play even if your branded fusion gets ashed because of the existence of this card called MUDDRAGON, which is a level 6 synchro, and we're not actually going to be synchro summoning for it, but rather we're going to be using its other effect, which happens to be the same effect as King of the Swamp. It allows you to substitute itself as a name for any fusion material. So this card can be used as a substitute for any one fusion material whose name is specifically listed on the fusion monster card, but the other fusion materials have to be correct, obviously. So the way we get this in rotation is with the Grand Guignol, the Dust Dragon, which allows you to, upon the fusion summon, foolish any level 6 or higher light or dark monster from your deck or extra deck. And this just happens to be a level 6 dark dragon monster that we can actually foolish from the extra deck. And then on the resolving chain, we can resolve the effect of the Tearlaments that's on the chain, shuffling back itself, as well as the MUDDRAGON in order to go into some of our more powerful fusions, things like Tearlaments Rukalos, even Grapha, Dragon Overloader of the Dark World, which allows you to change the effect of any normal spell, trap, or monster effect to you discarding one card. So essentially, it null and voids the effect of a card. It's more or less an Omni Negate. Or you could even go into other things like a Lubellion, the Searing Dragon. We can obviously use this to replace itself as a fusion material for Fallen of Albaz. So these are all some cool things that you can do, and it kind of allows you to put up a board past getting ashed, which I think obviously is the biggest crutch in this deck. So that's something I think that this deck could benefit from, being able to play through that. So yeah, let's just dive in really quickly. Ad lib. This is just for like the combo. We're just playing like one of the each, the bare minimum. I think most lists only play one of each in the pure Despia deck anyways, but it's always good to kind of have that option to make the Guardian Chimera when you have set branded in red in the end phase with your Albion being able to search that. And then obviously 3 Aluber, the Cartesia for the fusion deployment, really busted. This card alone off of fusion deployment plus any tier name in your hand allows you to essentially go into your full combo. So it allows you to fuse into Grand Guignol, and then on the chain resolving, you get to Foolish and MUDDRAGON, and then bounce back to the bottom of your deck, one of the Tearlaments, as well as a Mud to fusion summon something really good. Playing 3 Fallen Albaz, I just think it's really good to open this a lot of the times. So again, if you get ashed, having access to this alongside Polymerization, which we are playing because we're playing King of the Swamp, will still allow you to get your Mirror Jade in rotation, being able to hard fuse into Lubellion, for example. So I just think it's good enough that you want to play multiples. Also, Castira, using things like a Rise Heart to banish off the top of your deck. If you lose like 1 Fallen Albaz and you're only playing 2, it kind of is dicey because then for the rest of the duel, you might not have a way to activate Branded Fusion. If you happen to activate Branded Fusion and let's say that your Lubellion gets impermed or something, and the Fallen Albaz is kind of just chilling there in your grave, and you have no other ways to fuse from your deck using Branded Fusion for the rest of the duel. So I just think like having a maximum copies is pretty good. And then 3 King of the Swamp, so we can search Poly, as well as being additional fusion substitutes for our Tearlaments names. It combos quite well with the 1 Rhino Heart that we're playing, so if we happen to discard King of the Swamp and then we have Pearl Rhino, we can still go into fusion play before you can make something like Grapha, and then like before you activate Branded Fusion, and then that way you can negate the Ash using Grapha's effect, so you can push through the rest of your plays. It's also really nice because it plays around other hand traps, things like Nib, and just stuff that might be a minor annoyance later on in your turn. So we're just playing 3 Nibiru and then 3 Radiant. I just think that these are some of the more generic non-engine cards that could work well in the format. Obviously, this deck doesn't really have a lot of room to play. I would say like 6 max is probably your best bet in the branded, any type of branded deck. You probably only have 6 slots for non-engine. So I think Nibiru is good. You could make an argument to play Ash over Radiant, but I just think Radiant's kind of nice because this covers like the 2 things that the most popular deck in the format does. So Castira, they're either going to hard make an A-Rise Heart, or if their hand is good enough that they can play through Nib, they might just go like for the full wombo combo and try to lock up to 5 of your zones. So then we have Nib to kind of take care of that, and then we have the Radiant to take care of like the single A Rise Heart, like that pure zoo kind of passing with hand traps and hand type play And I think that it's nice that this is a dark monster, so you can fuse with the Blazing Cartesia. So it's kind of like the best card that you can use in terms of kaiju. We don't really want to use like a water Gamma Seal because it doesn't really do anything. Playing one of each of the tiers, and yeah, just one Rhino Heart. It's not a card that really starts anything in this deck. You really have to pair it with something else. But I think it's good enough to play because, like, obviously being able to complement this alongside the Kingless Swamp or Muddragon, anytime we sort of have those in graveyard, Rhino Heart immediately allows you to use your normal summon to make a fusion play. So I think it's good enough as a searchable target off for the Rhino. And then we're playing Dark Magician just for the Dragoon. Again, Branded Fusion being a good out to the Castera lock or A-Rise Heart in general. Just being able to slam down that Dragoon. They obviously can't interact because you summon Lubellion and then use the... So A-Rise Heart goes Chainlink 1, then you Lubellion Chainlink 2, and the whole time they can't really interact with that because you just shuffle this back. Even if this gets banished, you can still shuffle it back because you can shuffle back your banished card, so you just make a Dragoon, which they can't really negate, and then you pop their A-Rise Heart and continue playing. So it's really nice. And obviously, when this comes out, they also have Chainlink 1, so you can just negate and destroy as well by discarding a card. So it's kind of nice, and then you have that pop effect. What else? Let's see. 3 Branded Fusion, 1 Branded Red, really standard. 1 Branded Lost. I don't even know if you have to play this card because we're not playing like Lubellion or anything to search this, like the effect monsters. So you could probably just cut this, honestly. But I just thought it was good enough to have that you could search off of Aluber and start making some really cool plays off of that. We're not even playing Mercurier, actually. It's mainly just to search Cartesia, I guess. But you have Fusion Deployment, so this could probably just honestly be cut. I think it was just chilling there from an older iteration of the list that we did actually play the Mercuriers, so maybe we can just cut that. Branded Openings, Foolish Burial, so just like access to the tier name, access to Kingless Swamp, or access to something like Tragedy to search. 3 Fusion Deployment, really, really clutch card. And then you can also summon out the Tearlaments Rhino Heart with this by revealing a Kaleido Heart. So if you have like a weird hand where you have like Kingless Swamp in the grave and you just want to push through like a Grapha first, you could actually just summon the Rhino Heart, Foolish a name, and then fusing the Grapha and continue playing as opposed to summoning Cartesia. Or if you happen to draw Cartesia, this is like an option that you can do. Other thing is just 1 Poly for the Kingless Swamp, 3 Pillar Rhino and the Terraforming, just standard. Being able to tap into our Tearlaments engine. Again, we want to have a name in hand, generally with Fusion Deployment or some way to fuse into them or getting to Cartesia, because that's how you unlock your plays and protect yourself from Ash. And then side deck's really standard, just Ash Blossom for the Branded Mirror Match, 2 Bystials, same kind of deal. 3 Eclipse for the Castera lock, 3 Cosmic and the Harpies and the Evenlies just for back row decks, and also just going second in general. I think that there could be an argument to also play D-Barrier and then maybe Crossout Designator as well as Crossout Designator, going first, you can stop Ash, so that could be something that you guys can test. I didn't really like cards like that. I think, like, in this deck, you kind of have a built-in way to play around Ash, as long as you have access to, like, the King of the Swamp or the Muddragon to make the Grapha first, so you can kind of, like, push through and negate the Ash. But if it's not enough, like, maybe the Crossout Designators could be something that you guys can experiment with. I know a lot of pure branded decks are playing them, so yeah, it's something to consider. And the extra deck is quite standard, quite generic. We're playing the 2 Albions, the Proskenion for the Grand Guignol. When it happens to be engraved, you can banish it. Grapha, one of the power fusions. Garden Chimera, staple. 2 Lubellion, 2 Mirror Jade. Dragostapelia, the Dragoon. And then for tier cards, just the Kaleido Heart and the Rukalos, and then the Muddragon. So the extra deck's a little tight. There might be some flex room. Maybe you can play around with these ratios, like the Lubellion, or I don't know, probably not Albion, but there's some flex space you can play around. If you find yourself needing like second copy of Dragoon, if you have like a competitive scene where like people are just going for the lock and they're ripping out Dragoon every time, so you don't have an out in the term in the form of branded fusion against that lock, maybe that's something that you consider. So it really depends on the metagame, and it obviously changes event to event. So this is just what I have for now, and I'll show you guys a really quick combo. So yeah, this is kind of like the meat and bread of the deck I was talking about, the thing that kind of protects you from Ash Blossom and then other ways to stop your plays before you push through Branded Fusion. So anytime you have Fusion Deployment and a tier name, it's really, really cool because you go ahead and activate Fusion Deployment, and then you can special summon a Tearlaments monster from your, or you special summon Cartesia from your deck. And then with the Tearlaments monster in your hand, you're going to fuse into Grand Guignol, so we're using Cartesia, and then the Sharon, which is a dark monster. And then here we go, Chainlink 1 Sharon to fuse, and then Chainlink 2 Grand Guignol. I actually accidentally ordered the Chainlink wrong here because I was in a rush, but you have to make sure that you do chain this right, because obviously we want to have Muddragon in the graveyard before we resolve the effect of our Tearlaments name. So you go Chain Link 1, Tearlaments name engraved, Chain Link 2, Grand Guignol Descend. And it's actually a legal activation of Sheeran at the time because, again, we play Dragostapelia. So Dragostapelia existing at the time that Sheeran was fused would have been a legal fusion target. Like, we could have just used Sheeran and then the Grand Guignol to make Dragostapelia, which is why it's a legal activation. And then we're resolving that chain, so backwards, we're going to dump the Muddragon, and then the Sheeran will resolve, so that will allow us to use the Muddragon from the graveyard, as well as a copy of Sheeran, to fusion summon into either Rukelos or a Grapha if you have other plays. You know, you have something like a branded fusion access, so you want to activate that without having fear of Ash. So I'm going to show you guys another cool play, just a generic hand. I guess we'll play this out. So pretty good hand. We're going to start off. We have the combo Fusion Deployment plus a tier name. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Activate that to special summon out the Cartesia by revealing the Grand Guignol from our extra deck. Going to use the effect here to fuse off with the Merly, going to Grand Guignol, Chain Link 1, Merly in the graveyard, Chain Link 2, Grand Guignol, dumping the Muddragon, going to shuffle that back alongside Merly to special summon out the Grapha. So this protects us from Ash Blossom because we can just change that into we discard a card instead. And then I'm going to ditch off the King of the Swamp for the Polymerization and then activate Branded Fusion. So this is kind of neat. Branded Fusion can actually dump the tier names from your deck to make Lubellion because they are dark effect monsters. So if you have another King of the Swamp in the graveyard, one thing that you could also do is dump a tier name instead of the Tragedy, so then you can go into something like a Rukelos. It's a little dicey. It depends on like what you're trying to achieve with your inboard, depends on the rest of your hand. I think we're going to just go for it here. Obviously, the other play you can do is dump the Tragedy, add the Adlib, and then use the Mirror Jade to banish something to send the Albion. And then on the end phase, we're going to have the access to the Branded in red, plus the Mirror Jade coming back from the Adlib. So then you have like the Chimera draw cards and then pop cards, and then you also have the Mirror Jade. But that line kind of dies, unfortunately, to something like a Ghost Spell. So if you want to play around Ghost Spell, you don't really want to invest all your chips into that and just like play into the Ghost Spell. Maybe this is something that's a little better because we have King of the Swamp. So we're going to resolve Lubellion and then make the Mirror Jade, and then we have the Sheeran to resolve that we sent off the Branded Fusion. So I'm just going to go ahead and use that with the King of the Swamp to put out a Rukelos. So now we're not really scared of like a top deck Ghost Spell, for example, because that's just like, you know, something that's not really going to affect us here. We don't really care about the graveyard at this moment in time with this board. We have a couple of interactions. We have the Mirror Jade Banish, we have the Grapha Omni Negate, and we have the Rukelos Negate as well. And then we have the Grand Guignol to potentially banish and then summon out a Perskenion, so we can continue our plays. And the nice thing about this engine is that you get to add back the Cartesia in the end phase, so we automatically have a free discard for the Grapha. So we can keep that Nib in hand, or that whatever disruption you have as the last card in hand. And then this board is just like, it's decently strong. They have to get over everything. You have like banishes. We have a recursion. We can just foolish the Albion for the next turn as well, and then search another copy of Branded Fusion so we can keep playing. So yeah, I just want to show you guys some quick little combos. If you guys have any other ideas on how this deck could be a lot better, definitely let me know. I just like the fact that you can play through Ash with Grapha, and you can do all your plays before your opponent kind of has a chance to instantly stop you on the spot. Whereas in the pure branded deck, a lot of times you just pass to Ash, and it's just like really, really one of the crucial cards that stops the deck in its tracks. So yeah, that's about all I had for today. If you guys have any thoughts or comments, let me know in the comments below, and then subscribe if you haven't already. We'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.